Well, here we go. The FM20 beta is upon us, and we're not one to hold up the proceedings. So without further ado, let's get into our long-term One Club story. Hello and welcome along to Season 1, Episode 1 of this long-term FM20 story, A Wandering Dork with me, Daniel. As you can see, we're taking over Dorking Wanderers in the lowest playable league of the English pyramid, and the goal is very simple, to take them to the top of English and European football. As always, we're starting with relatively humble beginnings, as we start on just £750 a week. To be honest, a little more than I was expecting to have, but we're down in the Surrey area, so it might not stretch as far as it would normally, and we replace former manager Mark White, who achieved 13 promotions in 20 years since forming the club. So we've got a big task on our hands, and there's a few reasons we've picked this club in particular, and incidentally, I can see a few other YouTubers have picked them since, and that's because they're the perfect club for Football Manager. As we mentioned, 13 promotions in 20 years. They've got some stadium restrictions which could make things harder later down the line, and I outlined all the reasons I chose them before, as well as some of our usual self-imposed rules, and that was in our club reveal a few weeks back, so do go back and catch up with that if you need to know what we're doing. If you haven't followed any of the stories on the channel before, it'll just clear up some of the things that are unique to our save, and the reason that we don't use certain areas of Football Manager to try and make our experience as realistic as possible. If you're looking forward to the story and FM20 in general, please do put a thumbs up on the video. I hope you're looking forward to this Dorking Wanderers story as much as I am. After the success of Torquay United last year, I really can't wait to get started. Of course, this one's going to be slightly more tricky, a club that have only just been promoted to the league, so it's unlikely to be as much of a flying start this year, and hopefully that'll make the challenge all the more rewarding. If you're new to the channel and you're enjoying the FM20 videos, please do subscribe to the channel for daily content. Our one season beta series with Luton Town will start tomorrow. That will run twice a week on Saturday and Tuesday, and the Dorking Wanderers story will be on every other day, so 5 episodes a week you can expect from this one. So daily content on the channel from FM20, more videos than we've ever made from the game before, so I hope you're looking forward to it and strap yourself in. It's certainly going to be one hell of a ride. My immediate attention here is drawn to the new Sky Sports style news stories. We've obviously got the little yellow ticker in the middle of the screen and some lovely background shots as well, so we're certainly looking forward to getting going. We've chosen club colours for our suit this year, so I'm afraid those of you that have been following along, the pink and grey suit has been retired. I don't think there's any clubs that play in those two, so we're probably not going to see that ever again. And if you are new to my content on the channel, just to make you aware of the style to expect, I'm probably not the best actor, you won't see all of these little skits, but I am a massive football fan, and hopefully my love of the game comes through in this. So let's click through to the next ones and see if we can get to the home screen. We just want to go and meet the squad today, get a little introduction to some of our staff, and maybe take a look around the club as well. We've been wished the best of luck, it's a formal welcome to Dorking Wanderers, and I've got to say I really like this new style, although one thing that is vacant is the director of football role, and those of you that have followed this channel for a while will know how much I love having one of those. So that's something we've got to look at. Meadowbank, a 3,600 capacity stadium, slightly more than I thought when I was looking it up actually, and it says built in 1900, but they only moved into it in 2018, and that could take away some of the challenge for us. We were worried about not being able to ask for a new stadium. They've got poor training facilities and youth facilities, and a limited youth recruitment too, so they're certainly at a lower starting block than Torquay, and a media prediction of the bottom half, I doubt we'll be going for promotion in the first year. We've just got to make sure we keep our job, as we're showing the best 11 on side. Pryor's a player I've heard of, the striker. He's played at a higher level before I think, but not many others that I'm too familiar with, and more than number 10 is a player I've heard of, but I don't really know too much about him. Apparently Josh Taylor's our highest earner, and that's a bit of a concern because he's not showing in this best 11, so that might be something we have to address moving forward. I'm interested to see what the budgets are as well. The owners have been pumping money into the club, not a great huge amount, but they've been investing wisely, so I hope that's something we'll get throughout this save as we come through to this new club vision screen. So we've got a club culture one to start with, signing players under the age of 23, marked as favoured in terms of importance, but certainly not a high level requirement. The most important ones are within this 5-year plan, working within the wage budget and signing players to sell for a profit. So anyone who's seen my Torquay series, or in fact many of the others I've had on the channel, I love bringing in young players and selling them on for big money. I try to run the clubs realistically, so this is actually playing into my hands perfectly. We've expected to finish mid-table this season, which is a little bit of a push for a side that have just been promoted, and to reach the 4th qualifying round of the FA Cup, we'd really like to go on a run in that one. The FA Trophy first round is the least important of the competitions, and our contract expires at the end of the year, so we'll be hoping we'll get a new one after that. They want a top half finish the 2 or 3 years afterwards, and it's essential to get there by the end of the 4th season, and that's something we're going to have to work on in the future. We'd like to get out of this league within 5 years. The most important thing this season though, keep the board happy, don't get sacked, and build a solid base we can work with in the future to help us fly up the leagues in future years. So let's go through to the next one. Do we want to schedule a meeting with the media? Yes, we do. We don't want a friendly tomorrow though, as a little bit too soon in pre-season, and we don't need an advice report from the backroom staff yet, although we should leave it on just to keep them happy. We'll probably ignore it, but just to keep people on side, we're not going to rock the boat too much yet. So here's our formal confirmation. An unknown 26-year-old Englishman taking charge. We've left our stats as is realistic actually. I've got 1 coaching badge, so I've left it on the National C licence, and we're a Sunday League footballer, so that's exactly what we've gone for. In attributes, we put it all towards working with youngsters, something I've really enjoyed in previous editions with the game. Apparently my preferred tactical style's tiki-taka. I don't think you're going to see much of that in the first few years, so sorry to disappoint you based on that screen, but that's the first lie that's been told already. We've got 3 for motivating level of discipline and determination, probably reflects my ability more, and not much knowledge of players or youngsters. At this level I don't even know half of my own squad. My 3 most local clubs are Luton Town, who are obviously up in the Championship now, who will be starting our beta save with tomorrow, and in Hitchin and Crawley Green, who are further down the ladder than this, so this is the sort of level I tend to miss out now. The National League you see a little bit on TV, but this level we don't really get to see much action. So let's go through the inbox for the initial messages, and then we'll go and meet the squad and staff, and we'll try and decide where we need to improve before we come back in episode 2 on Sunday. Of course we'll have our first game of the season, and we'll also be showing you our pre-season signings that hopefully will be key to our first team throughout the season. So let me know in the comments where you think we need to improve as we go along, obviously once we meet the squad in particular, and what do you think of the new club vision and expectations? I think they suit us down to the ground here, and that's certainly not something I was expecting at the start. So players in the last season of the contract is almost everyone, but there's a lot of 4.5 and 3.5 star abilities there. That's something that's given me a little bit of hope, but of course that could just be a poor assistant manager with poor judging attributes for player ability and potential, and also we could just have no good players at the club, although I do recognise Jake Gallagher and Matthew Briggs. So tactics induction we're not going to worry about for now. It's something we're aware of from last year, and we've got our club vision and expectations meeting, so let's see if there's anything we need to change. I don't think we need to do anything really. I'm pretty happy with what they put in here. We could bring players for the youth team, but realistically it's not good enough yet, and we also could take the approach of signing high profile players, but it's not something I want to risk just yet, so I'm going to accept the current vision. The pre-season preparations there's injury risk and condition and fatigue, but the sharpness is looking pretty good, and more importantly the team cohesion's high. That's something you don't often get at this stage. I guess the one massive difference between Torquay and us is Dorking are a fully semi-professional side, so that's something we're going to have to contend with as well. Only training 2 or 3 times a week, and it limits what you can work on as well. The improvement in players will probably be lower than usual, as I find another name in Giuseppe Sol that I recognise there, so I'm starting to get a little more optimistic about the club, although I'm sure these players have declined since I remember them. We've got our introductory meeting, but it's not worth talking about yet. All tactical decisions, and we haven't even met the players, so let's go and meet our staff very quickly, and then we'll finish this episode by looking at the squad. I must say I'm really impressed with the club vision section. It's something that I've really wanted to see in the game for a while, and as director of football improvements coming too, so if we do pick the head coach as our second long-term story, that's certainly going to help us in that one. So our assistant manager is still Mark White, who was the manager beforehand, and he's one of the owners as well, though that doesn't seem to be reflected there, but he's got decent attributes and we'll certainly work with him. That means we've got 2 assistant managers, weirdly enough. The other one, Dean Milton, who's not very good either, so we might have to do some hiring and firing here. We'll be putting out some adverts as we go along. Of course we can't use the staff search screen, one of our self-imposed rules as we go along. The same goes for the player search screen too. We rely on scout reports and finding players organically. Our head of youth development not got the best judgment, but he is good at working with youngsters. Our goalkeeping coach is absolutely appalling, and our fitness coach isn't that great either. We've got a player/fitness coach in Daniel Pearce, only 23 years of age. That's a little bit bizarre. Don't know if he's had injury problems or something like that, but his fitness attribute is 1. That is absolutely woeful. He's not going to be much help either. So although we've got lots of coaches at the club here, none of them are really of a decent standard. I don't think any of them have got any attributes in double figures, and that's certainly going to make things very difficult. Our chief scout's awful at judging ability. Our under-18s coach, what's he like? Another player, Josh Gallagher, 26 years of age as a midfielder, and he's probably one of the best coaches at the club. A couple of physios on board, they've both got terrible ratings too, and I'm really not looking forward to this season based on the coaching levels we've seen. What I would say based on the judging ability of our assistants is that those coach reports for our players shouldn't be taken too seriously. Let's go and meet the squad now before we finish the episode, but we will take the ratings relatively lightly. Before we finish off and look at these, let's go through very quickly and look at the under 23s. In fact, we don't have one. We've got a development centre which contains our youth squads, and we are going to go and look at this in more detail in the past. So we'll finish that and we'll go and look at the 2 squads, and then we'll worry about this in the next episode. It's one of the things I want to keep a close eye on. You know how much I enjoy the youth intakes and bringing through the youth players. We've been told we've got 3 to watch, although there's no first team candidates, so maybe these ones are to look at, but potentially not much of a help in the immediate future. So they don't look great, to be honest, though we will go and have a quick look ourselves. Only a couple with an ability worth considering. I'd say Sam Beard is good enough. 2-star ability, 4.5 potential. He certainly deserves a looking in a senior squad. In terms of the under 18s, there's no one worth looking at, so let's get back to the squad for now and see which areas we need to improve. As I go through this, let me know who you think are going to be the stars this season, which formation you think we should play. We've got to decide a tactic before the next episode too, and which areas of the squad do you think we need to improve most. We've got a very limited budget, I would imagine, so that's going to be something we have to prioritise. Just £750 available in the wage budget, probably the equivalent of 2 first team players, and 15 grand on the transfer budget. One of them could potentially be off the transfer list, but he's not going to give us much leeway at all. So we've definitely only got 1 first team standard goalkeeper, Slavomir Huck, who's 2.5-star ability, 3-star potential, 26-year-old Slovak. He's not particularly good. His handling's absolutely atrocious, but he's good enough to get by for now. I'd imagine he's good enough to keep us in the league, but he certainly isn't going to be doing too much for us. So immediately I found an area I need to improve. That's going to be one of my priorities, I think. If you think otherwise, then let me know. And something that's just occurred to me here, no player has a best position of left fullback, so that might take a back 4 out of our hands. You know I hate playing with a back 3 as well. We did it with Torquay for a couple of years in FM19. We leaked goals for fun. It was absolutely woeful. So let's look at the 2 right backs we've got. Both 2-star ability and not particularly good by the looks of it. That's something that's a big concern for us. 2 fullbacks on the shopping list as well. So we've looked at 3 positions and we haven't got players in any of them, so that's certainly something to worry about, although it does look like we've got 3 decent centre halves. All experience, so David Ray's the first one, 34 years of age, they're all 3-star ability. He's very slow now, but he can play in a back 3, decent attributes aside from that, and mentally he's a very good leader. We've got Ed Harris, a 28-year-old, now he looks like a much better centre half. His mental stats, particularly composure and decisions, really poor, but aside from that he's fairly decent. A jovial personality, not the best, but at least he's a decent player to start with. And then the other one is skipper Sami El Abd. Let's see what he's like. Again a bit slow, getting towards the twilight of his career, but he's a decent player nonetheless, having joined from Bognor Regis a year ago. So we've got 3 decent centre halves if we need them, but absolutely no fullbacks at all. What I'm hoping is that 1 or 2 of these wingers can drop back, particularly Tom Richards, who's 3.5-star ability, the first standout player I've seen here. He can play left back, he's accomplished in the role, but realistically he wants to be better going forward. He's got good attributes and he's fairly good physically too. Natural fitness of 16, that is a key point at this level. We're playing 2 games a week and we're a semi-pro side. We need players who can recover in 2 or 3 days. He's marked as a regular starter and he certainly will be for us, but I'd imagine with a small squad on a little budget, he might have to play in both of his positions. If we move into midfield, we've got a couple of pretty average squad players. We've looked at some of them as they were among our listed coaches anyway. And then Jake Gallagher, one of the coaches, 4.5-star ability, 4.5 potential, a really solid player. I remember him playing for Aldershot on some of the TV games in the National League. A really decent pro in a holding role. He can play in defensive midfield or central midfield, likes to be a ball winner or a central midfielder. I'm sure I've had him in a save a few years back, but his determination's great. He's got a professional personality, and he's the sort of person we need in training. He's going to be really key in one of those mentoring groups. We want to get him off that dives into tackles trait, but he gets the crowd going and he plays simple passes, knows his limitations, and that's something that should bode well for us. We just need to stop him getting sent off regularly, and we could have a fairly decent player on our hands. The next one is Dan Gallagher. I've no idea if he's related, no picture, so I'd imagine not. A defensive midfielder, he's really limited technically, but he can sit in that role and just hold his shape. That's all we ask for of a defensive midfielder, just to give a bit of a shield to that back 3 or 4. I think he could become a quite key player for us. So we'll try and tie him down to a regular contract, and hopefully he'll stick with us for the rest of the season. We've got one other decent central midfielder, which is Niall McManus. 2.5 star ability, 3.5 potential. Can't pass, hasn't got much technique, no stamina and struggling mentally as well, but he's got decent pace and he's a good decision maker, so he might be a body off the bench if we need him, and he can cover 2 or 3 positions as well. As it turns out, as we move to the wings, I don't know who Matthew Briggs is. I thought it was the old Fulham one, but the picture's obviously very different. Though 3.5 star ability, 4 star potential, he looks a fairly decent winger, solid enough for this level at least. A winger on support duty, nice and simple, is what we like to use actually. He's okay technically and decent physically, but mentally he's still struggling in key areas. He'll still be a valuable player in our first year though. He's not the sort of player we'd like to build the squad around. We've got Luke Moore, who's a 31-year-old experienced winger, can play anywhere across the attacking midfield 3, technically okay, mentally very good, but physically he's certainly past his best, though he is one of the highest paid players at the club, and he's going to be a key player in our first season, that little bit of flair we need to unlock a defence. Into the attacking areas, and this is where we come to life. James McShane is a right winger, but I presume he can play up front as well. Natural as a striker and a right sider. A winger with 3.5 star ability, 3.5 potential. At 28, he's in his peak, he's a decent player. Got all the key attributes, good off the ball, good dribbler, good with pace and stamina, and I think he's going to be our starter on that right hand side. It looks like he's going to be a key pro for us. I'm really looking forward to working with him. He's the sort of player that can make an impact to this level. Lacks a little bit in terms of technique, but quite a few players lack something at this level. And then we've got 2 really strongly rated strikers. Jason Pryor's 4.5 star ability, we'll come to him in a moment, but Elliot Buchanan, 4 star ability, 4 star potential, again in his peak at 29 years of age. I'm sure I remember him from the Football League somewhere. Where do I recognise that name from? Newport perhaps, maybe Boreham Wood. They're a relatively local side I've managed before in the game. But a star player on a relatively modest wage, maybe not the best finisher in the world, but he'll certainly score a few goals at this level, and he should be enough to keep us up this year, so I think he's going to be a crucial pro for us. And then finally Jason Pryor is the main one, 4.5 ability, 4.5 potential, again at 30 at the peak of his powers, 13 finishing, which is brilliant at this level, decent physically across the board, and mentally he's fairly solid as well. He's a proper player at this level. Yes, he can play as a poacher, which we won't use here. We'll play him as a target man on attack, and alongside Buchanan I think they should get goals. 600 quid a week, he's paid as a star player, and we've got to try and reduce this wage bill slightly. If we can get a few of these backup and squad players out, we should be able to bring in some much better talent. So from me meeting the squad, it looks like we need to play a front 2. We've got 2 strikers that could combine really well, 2 attacking wingers on either side which could be great. That's something I want to use too, and I don't know then what we do with the rest of the team. We've got 6 more outfield players remaining, and we can choose what we want to do with them. I'd rather go for a back 4 and then 2 holding or central midfielders, but of course I might not get the choice in that. A 4-4-2 with attacking wingers, that could work very nicely for us, but if we're going to have those wingers higher up the pitch, we need to have really solid defensive fullbacks. So that is certainly top of the shopping list in my opinion, as well as a decent goalkeeper if we can find one, and I'd like to sign one good player in central midfield, just to play alongside the likes of Gallagher, and maybe that holding midfielder too. 2 Gallaghers, that's going to be hard to get used to, but let me know if you agree with my analysis of the squad, or do you think we should be going for a different tactic, and maybe looking for completely different signings? But as we mentioned, we're going to go and make our signings off camera, and we'll be back on Sunday for the first game of the season. Before we finish, we will go and check who that's against, and hopefully they'll be coming up against a lot of new transfers. We want to try and improve this squad, though there is some talent there, though it's certainly not going to be Torquay United. We won't be getting promoted in either of the first 2 seasons. It'll take an absolute miracle for that. This squad still does have a lot of players left from the year before playing in the division below, and I think we do need to improve round the sides, and hope that some of these first teamers become long-term backups. But if you did enjoy this episode, the start of our FM20 long-term story, and meeting the Dorking Wanderers squad and club, please do put a thumbs up on the video. If you're new, then subscribe for daily FM20 content, 5 episodes a week from this story long-term, and then on Tuesday and Saturday we'll have content from our FM20 beta save. That's with my beloved Luton Town, where I'll probably make a few more rash emotional decisions. We'll look at the development centre at some point in the first season too, just to get a bit more detail on that, and I'm really impressed with the club vision these guys have. It's something that's going to suit us down to the ground. If we go to the club info to finish, just so you can see the position we're in, we're expected to finish 14th. Let me know what you think of that based on the squad, and Mark White staying as our second assistant manager, a club legend who we're going to do well to beat. But obviously a relatively modern club in football, just 20 years in a business, but a perfect one for Football Manager, particularly with those 13 promotions. I'm a little bit worried about the stadium. It does say year rebuilt 2017 there, so maybe that means we'll have to wait till 2042 for the stadium, and that could make things really difficult later in the challenge. But I can't wait to get started and see what it means moving forward. I don't think we'll have to worry about Premier League football for some time. But a massive thanks for watching this one and supporting the start of a new series as always. I really do appreciate it, and I hope to see you next time for another important episode as we play our first game as Dorking Wanderers manager. That one's going to be against Welling in the National League South, and I hope to see you on Sunday to introduce some new signings for it.